Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. This is the Oracle Autonomous Database Learning Lounge. I am Marcos Anasibia, part of the product management team for Autonomous Database. And today we're going to have a very, very special session. We're going to be talking about, the 10 ways you can use actually Azure services with the Autonomous Database, right? And this session today, we're going to be having two of my favorite people here at Oracle. So we're going to have Marty Gubar, who's Director of Product Management, and Dominic Ficarella. He's a Senior Director of Solution Architecture. And they're both are going to be talking to you about, how Microsoft and Oracle created this special solution for running Oracle database services directly inside Microsoft Azure. And what we're going to see is different uses of actually Microsoft tools like Visual Code, OpenAI, Data Factory, Data Fabric, all of the different components, DevOps and things like that. And they're going to actually be demoing that to you. So it's going to be a very hands-on experience as well. Okay. So hopefully you'll leave the session, with an understanding of what you can do and the things that we can do for you. This is part 2 of a 3-part series on database, Oracle Database at Azure. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to type them in the Q&A section of Zoom. We're going to share links with you guys through chat, okay? The recording, and actually, if you want to subscribe to this session, you can look at the link here. The link I'm going to distribute as well through chat. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you can just click the first link in the description, okay? All right. So speaking about links, take a look at the chat right now. I am posting several of the links there. And hopefully you guys are seeing that. So those links take you to, the basics on Oracle Autonomous Database. Also how to join us, like on LinkedIn, on X, and how to ask your questions. So we have two different places. You can ask your questions on Stack Overflow, and you can ask your questions on the developer Slack. So Oracle has a workspace, an Oracle developer workspace in Slack that is open, so you guys can join. And then you search for the channel called the Oracle Autonomous Database, and we are able to answer your questions there. Okay, and we announce a few things and sessions there as well. All right. Okay. All right. So without further ado, thank you very much for joining, Marty. Thank you, Dom, for joining us today and doing this session for us. I really appreciate it. Just please, you can start sharing your screen and take it away. And thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much, Marcos. I quickly introduce myself. My name is Marty Gubar. I'm from the product management team for Autonomous Database. I've been here for a while. I actually started with a little OAuth cubes. That was my start. Then all the way went to big data, all the way big data Hadoop, and everything in between. Now I've been focused on Autonomous Database and for the last few years, and its integration with Azure and AI and whatnot. And Dom, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for your time today. Dom Ficarella here. Like Marty, I've been involved in databases and data and AI for a long time, both here at Oracle and at Azure. And thanks so much for your participation. And hopefully you're going to learn quite a bit today about the exciting integrations that we've built with Azure.
Yeah, I hope this is going to be a really fun session. So for those of you who are new to this, Oracle Database at Azure and Autonomous Database at Azure, it's a new offering that from Oracle and Microsoft that is really bringing the best Oracle database technologies to Azure. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to explore how the combination of the two, right? How the combination of database capabilities and Azure service can really help you build innovative AI-driven applications and solutions really easily, and being able to take advantage of the best of both worlds here. And if we start this, I think it's September of last year when this all launched. It was a pretty big deal, right? Where it's a big deal for both Oracle customers and Microsoft customers. And it was such a big deal that Larry went up to Redmond for the first time, I think it's in 45 years, right? Right. So it was a pretty big event, right? And that was how important this announcement is, right? And how important it is to really provide this opportunity to our customers to deliver these mission critical services and solutions to our customers. But this has really kind of been part of a journey, hasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, it sure has, Marty. And in fact, for those of you out there that are like, hey, what's different? We've been doing this. We've been running Oracle on Azure for a long time. Well, prior to 2019, you could run Azure or you could run Oracle databases in Azure VMs and in infrastructure services. But in 2019, we kind of decided to add, listening to our customers, our joint customers, we decided to add quite a bit of value, which was the notion of let's set up high-speed integration between a lot of the key Azure regions and not provide any egress fees either way. Now, that was kind of groundbreaking at the time because, of course, egress fees are a big component of many organizations' cloud fees. But we didn't stop there, right? In 2022, again, hearing from our customers, hey, we're kind of a committed Azure shop, and we really like that look and feel. We've integrated into the various APIs that Azure offers, the resource manager, and all of the PowerShell DevOps innovation. And so we kind of brought out this notion of not only leveraging the improved connectivity that we had put in 2019, but also we brought out the notion of the Azure portal look and feel, and we call that the database service for Azure. But again, listening to customers, we need more innovation. We actually want residency in Oracle so that we could take advantage of low latency and have really much better integration with Azure services, telemetry, so on and so forth. So in 2024, the idea of becoming an Azure native service happened. And as Marty said, right, that was at the very top level of both companies between Satya and Larry. But also, we introduced the notion of our best database services within the Azure marketplace in a consumption model that customers can use the committed Azure credits. So again, we continue to innovate to provide customers and meet customers where they are. So what does that really mean in terms of, how are we going to crystallize that today? I already said we're bringing really our best database services natively into Azure. But what does that mean? Well, it means that we're bringing all the highest levels of availability, the full automation, and that was one of the answers. One of the key answers in the poll questions that Marcos asked was, what are you looking to get out of this? And again, these are the greatest agility, the most fully automated, highest availability database services from Oracle, and we're combining those with the trusted application services in Azure. So tying into Azure DevOps, Microsoft Fabric. If you're doing Kubernetes development, right, how can you natively connect and leverage the database resources of Oracle through a common identity in Microsoft Entra ID? And you're going to see a lot of that. But really, all of this, what it really boils down to is enabling you folks to build intelligent applications faster, more efficiently, at lower cost, while leveraging the key services from both companies in the partnership. And so what's the opportunity here? Well, again, I said automation, less effort, the best of both worlds, in three different areas that we see customers really wanting to adopt here is, again, I mentioned earlier, the infrastructure components running Oracle in Azure virtual machines. Well, now you have the ability to take those Azure VMs and run those in a fully or semi-automated service so that in the end, you get the best of all worlds. Taking on-prem applications, maybe up till now, there's not been the opportunity. Again, committed Azure, you want to be able to take all of your most important workloads from on-prem. Now you have the ability to natively move those into Azure. And of course, bringing all the analytics, the models, the various schema types that come with the Oracle database. Now it also enables you to have new levels of integration with application development and in building new intelligent applications that weren't there before using enterprise data that's already in Oracle. So with that, I guess, Marty, where are we going to see today these integrations? How are they going to manifest themselves so that the folks on the call can really, start to get tangible benefit?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I think the benefit too from this whole thing is that, I think we all come at this from our own perspectives, right? From our own experiences. We have different hats, right? You have someone like who's wearing the Oracle hat. And that person who's wearing the Oracle hat, well, they're going to be using things like Performance Hub. That's what they're comfortable with. That's what they're going to be using. They're going to be maybe loading data with our built-in APIs or Data Studio, using built-in Graph Studio, building apps with Apex. But on the other side, you may have someone coming in with that Azure hat, right? And with that Azure hat, they're not necessarily, maybe they're going to use some of these built-in features, but they're also going to be wanting to use things like, well, I'm going to manage my database like I manage my other services, using Azure Monitor, and I'm going to build pipelines using Data Factory and Synapse pipelines, or build apps with Azure Power Apps, right? So I think the key here, Dom, and everybody's like, you have choice, right? You get the best of both, right? So, you get to benefit from the power of and versus really suffering from the tyranny of or. And I think that is one of the big things. So, this is true across personas, right? So what we're going to do today, we're going to look at this from an operations perspective, a developer's perspective, as well as from a business user's perspective. And these are just, we're calling out the portal integration, DevOps, building apps with VS Code and the API management services and Azure OpenAI. All of these things, like across for these different stakeholders, we're going to show all of this today, right? All of these different things through demonstrations, but this is just a small piece of what's possible. So, what do you think, Dom? How do you think people are going to benefit?
Well, we're going to show a lot of things. You just probably showed, I don't know, 15 different things on that screen. So what could possibly go wrong, right? So, but in the end, right, what are we really talking about here? And Marty really opened this up with, the three different types of users that might typically interact with this data. So what does it mean to each of those users in their day in the life? And so what we wanted to do before jumping into showing you is, hey, where do you benefit from, right? As an IT person, as an operations person, right? It's a lot about simplification. It's a lot about tying it into the processes that you currently have automated to deploy your data services. It's about ensuring that the best practices around mission critical business continuity, enterprise security, zero trust kind of security are pre-built in. So that's what you're going to get from an IT and operations person. It's integration with the Oracle zones and Entra IDs and things like that, while still taking advantage of the base capabilities that Oracle brings to the table in these areas, and that we've really been known for from a database perspective for a long time. Now, for developers, right, it's going to mean, how do I put Gen AI and inject it into an app really natively quickly, but combine it with things like graph analytics and spatial analytics and so on and so forth to build that more intelligent app quickly or more quickly. But while doing that and working in a language environment and framework of choice. So developers get to continue to develop, and you'll see this shortly in a .NET application, but you get to continue to develop how you're most efficient and what you're most used to while still leveraging the underlying components and benefiting from the different multi-mode kind of capabilities that Oracle has. And lastly, from a business analyst perspective, it's enabling them to become more efficient by bringing tools and accessibility to data that they didn't have before, and doing it in a way where if they want to ask natural language questions or so on and so forth, it's actually built into the data platform. And you're going to see some of that. So I think, Marty, you opened it up with the three personas. We've got the value side of it. Now let's kind of jump right in.
Yeah, enough talking, Dom. Enough talking. Let's show it. So, yep. So the first thing that we're going to do is you're going to see that it's really, really easy, right, to provision a fully managed autonomous database. It takes minutes, right? And when you deploy it, you get the 99.95% uptime, right, which is awesome. And if you want to increase that uptime, it automatically hooks up with all the great autonomous database capabilities, things like autonomous data guard, and which can up that availability even higher. Similarly, enabling data safe, right? So you can have that whole security control center and data guard, et cetera. Now, on the right here, you see maybe you want to automate your deployments. They're using Terraform, and here what we're showing is using the Azure CLI with PowerShell, right? So it's really, really simple through code to be able to deploy and manage your autonomous databases on Azure. So automation is all taken care of. But let's say you want to deploy it through the portal. Well, let's take a look at that experience and see what that is like.
Start in the Azure portal and go to Oracle Database at Azure and select Create an Oracle Autonomous Database. Add the database to a resource group and give the database a name and where you would like to have it deployed. Next, configure the database. Choose the workload type. All workload types are the same great Oracle database. They are simply tuned to the specific workload. And we'll pick transaction processing and mixed workloads. Specify your sizing requirements. And don't worry, you can always change this later without impacting running workloads. And you can take advantage of autoscale, which means your compute and storage increases automatically if the utilization demands it. And you only pay for the increased compute while it's in use. Your database is always backed up. Identify the retention period, and finally specify your admin ID and password. Add your autonomous database to a private network and click Create. Your database is available after a few minutes. Here it is in the portal. In addition to the great Azure tooling, you also have access to the autonomous database tools on OCI. Here's where you can make modifications to your deployment, including the compute and storage resources. All changes take place live and with zero downtime. And there are lots of great built-in tools for helping you build apps and analyze data. Easily integrate new datasets, create machine learning models and graph models, design APIs over database objects, build low-code apps with Apex, and more. Plus, you can take advantage of the terrific database performance monitoring tools that Oracle Database customers love.
I mean, so there you have it, right? In just like a couple minutes, you've deployed your database, right? And that's what's so nice. And what I wanted to show here too was two things. So we're showing, the beauty is you can shell out into the OCI console and you can use the Oracle Performance Hub. top shelf SQL analysis of SQL monitoring and all the goodness that you always get with the Performance Hub. What's coming is also, we have this with the Oracle Database at Azure for Exadata. What is coming soon is the Azure monitoring. So the goodness here is that you really you'll have the best of both worlds, right? Now, the next part, hey, now that my database is deployed, what about user management and data authorization? Like all these building blocks, these fundamental building blocks. Dom, why don't you kind of describe how we work with those?
Yeah, thanks, Marty. So in this case, again, Marty showed sort of the quick deployment, and of course that, for those of you that are in Azure portals all day or working through the CLI, you'll recognize that these are absolutely native integrated capabilities. But now let's talk about Entra ID, and I thought, what best way to really demonstrate the integrations that we built in with the Azure Entra ID than to take two perspectives, right? One on the right is really the developer perspective, while the one on the left is really more the analyst or the business user. So let's kind of walk through the one on the right first. And what you'll see here is the idea of a .NET console application. And the console application is just called Entra ID Connect, nothing big. But the idea is that this application runs, and you'll see that this is natively going out to a sign-on user. And again, for those of you that use this every day, this will not be anything new. This is a typical login from Azure. In this case, I'm logging in as my login ID. And as I go through this, what you'll see is that I've made the connection to Oracle, but more importantly, the authenticated identity is passed all the way through. So now you've got the ability to authenticate and authorize from within a native .NET application using native Entra ID. And hopefully that'll really spur some thinking around, hey, this is absolutely, native integration. So that's that. Now, in the case of a business analyst, let's show it real time. Now, this is where the what could possibly go wrong comes in. Yeah. But what you have here is I've got a connectivity to, and you'll, again, for those of you native Azure, use Fabric, PowerBI, what I've got here is I've got a couple of users. In this case, as you can see up here, I've got an analyst. I'll go ahead and highlight that. So this is an analyst user. And this analyst user has been given access to some movie stream data. And so I'll just go in, and this is a typical Power BI kind of report, not intended to be very indicative of the day-to-day, a complex report or anything. It's really intended to show more the integration of security here. But the idea here is that I'm looking at some gross totals of movie data, and there's also some salary information that's on this particular report. And this is an analyst user. Now you might say, okay, well, you could show me that, in general, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But here I want to show you exactly how we're doing this, right? So a user has created, typical using Power BI Desktop, has created a report called Movie Stream that they want to share. That's been published to a Power BI workspace, and within that workspace, we have a connection called Movie Stream. And what I really want to point out is that you see here what's checked. Now, I can't change it because I don't have the authority in the workspace, but I've checked use single sign-on via Azure AD for direct queries. And that's exactly what I want to be able to manifest here. So what you see like I said earlier, is again, this is how we support the single sign-on. You can see this is live. I'll go back to the report. And in this case, like I said, the analyst user has access to the salary data. I've also got another user, and you'll see here, he's called Power User. And this user, again, same report, same workspace. If I open the report, what I see here, I should see the same thing, right? Well, now I want to go in through some of the cool tools that Marty showed us. All I want to do is I want to revoke access to the salary data from the Power User. So I go in and I revoke access from that user, and you see the revoke is succeeded. And literally now, here's my Power User. I just refresh the screen, and you'll see here, if it works right, that here you go. So in this case, I couldn't retrieve the data for this visual. So in real time, I'm effectively taking that single sign-on and making sure that that user can see that data. So not only are we giving you security, we're giving you security at the data level. So impossible to get past while still enforcing all the security at the Power BI service level. So this is a PaaS service that's passing the identity all the way through to the database, and the database is enforcing that identity. So hopefully that shows you the level of integration, both for an analyst user, as well as an analyst user in Power BI, as well as a developer who's building applications in .NET. So with that, let's jump back to what does that look like? Just to give you a little bit more flavor for the flow that took place with the developer. In this case, there's OAuth 2 is used, tokens, the user accesses the application needs which then needs access to data. And we take a typical OAuth 2 flow to and from the Entra ID, and then the database goes and validates that the OAuth 2 token, that the user who's coming in has the appropriate privileges on the data, and more importantly, that the authentication itself is coming from Entra ID. Now, in this case, there's a couple options. I showed you the device code flow, which is using the interactive browser base, but there's also the ability to use things like principles, service principles, and so on and so forth. Now, that's the application development flow. There's also obviously Entra ID to the other services, right? In this case, you're going to see later accessing the Oracle Database accessing directly an Azure Data Lake storage account. And in the end, we encapsulate the connection details so you can include the API key directly. But really what's more secure is you don't embed the API key anywhere, and you instead use a service principal to authorize and manage and secure the key in Azure Key Vault, which of course is the native integration. So there, obviously, we get the secret out of the Key Vault, and then we pass it on to the storage account for access. So again, tight integration with Azure Data Lake Store, Azure Key Vault, and just the database in general in all these different services. So Marty, I mean, with that, why don't we jump into the team development and get into where the collaboration comes there?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is so important. Those are table stakes, certainly that Dom just went through. And now that the data is secure and access is managed and secure, now we want to simplify like integrated team development, right? And so, first is develop apps. Especially, we're really focusing on your database objects here with your choice of tools, right? And we're actually going to be using MongoDB Compass to create new collections. So new objects will be created. And also we'll be using VS Code. And we have really nice plugins to VS Code. So now that you've created these objects, well, you want to share them, right? And you want to manage them with Azure DevOps and publish those into the repo and manage them centrally. So you share your database objects and code just like you would the rest of your application code. It's completely integrated and seamless. And then finally, that's sharing your definitions of your objects. But if you want to perhaps save your data into the lake for data lake storage. So it could be used by other Azure services that can be done really easily as well. So let's take a look at that whole process, starting with creation of those objects.
MongoDB Compass is connected to Autonomous Database. You work with JSON documents in Autonomous Database just as you would work with a standalone Mongo database. Here we have several collections. Let's take a look at the movie collection. You can see a list of movies, cast members, crew members, lots of attributes about each movie. Query the collection using MongoDB's native syntax. Here, we're looking for the movie Big. Run more sophisticated queries to get Academy Award winners released after 1990. You see Gladiator and its awards. And of course, lots of Steven Spielberg movies, like Schindler's List. People love watching movies together. So MovieStream is introducing watch parties. Create a new watch party collection, and we will import the initial transactions. You can see Annabelle created a watch party to view Guardians of the Galaxy with her friends. Let's now query that watch party in VS Code using SQL. Oracle has great plugins to VS Code for running queries and writing code. Here's the watch party JSON data in its native format. It's not easy to understand. You can use Oracle SQL to query that data in a structured way and combine it with other tables. And you can create different views of the same data for different use cases, like high-level reporting or graph analytics that want to understand connections, like who is watching movies together, and then deriving communities from that information. There is deep integration between Autonomous Database at Azure and Azure services for managing your code and sharing your data. We just use the MongoDB API to Autonomous Database to create a collection and load data. Let's share both the code and the data with other users. We'll use Autonomous Database APIs to push the DDL for the watch party collection into the Azure DevOps repo, and then save the data for that collection into Azure Data Lake storage. Let's switch over to Azure DevOps to see the DDL for our collection and all our other database code, including tables, procedures, functions, and more. Here's our watch party collection. And our object storage container has a new folder called Watch Party with the collection's data.
So it's simple, right? I think that's part of the key is like integrating your development experience with your native Azure experiences. And the other thing is now, well, let's build some apps, right? Let's build some intelligent AI apps. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply the power of Azure OpenAI to data that is private, right? To data that's in your database. So we'll do things like create promotional emails to develop new or develop new services like creating a bedtime story. So the challenge is OpenAI doesn't know anything about your data. So we have a capability called Select AI that allows you to kind of blend or apply your AI to your data, right? To that private data to do these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to show how that OpenAI integration works with your data, and then we're going to publish those as REST endpoints, right? So they, all of these capabilities can then be consumed by different applications in a secure way across your environment, your estate. So let's jump into that and show how that's
Start in
done.
VS Code where we'll use an AI SQL function to create a personalized email that recommends movies based on those the customer previously watched and those that MovieStream wants to promote. This task requires information that the OpenAI LLM knows nothing about. It's using data that's private to MovieStream. This includes the movies that MovieStream wants to promote, the movies that the customer has recently watched, and some demographic information about the customer. And finally, all of this information is packaged as a JSON document, which is easily interpreted by the LLM. Run the query, and you can see a compelling email with recommendations to Jeannie. She's seen Terms of Endearment up in Paranormal, so check out Back to the Future, E.T., and Goonies. We just used a single query to augment our model's prompt to get personalized results. It's remarkably simple and powerful. Let's publish this query and some other procedures, like create a bedtime story, as APIs. Autonomous Database provides a designer for creating REST endpoints. MovieStream created an API module, and it contains several services. Let's look at our email promotion. Here is a parameterized version of the query that we just ran. And we also exposed an API for creating a bedtime story. Publish the APIs to the Azure API Management Service so they can be managed along with your other services and consumed by applications. Export the module in the OpenAPI format, and then import them into the Azure API Management Service and manage them with the rest of your services. Test out the APIs. Generate a personalized email promotion to Jeannie. And create a new bedtime story based on movies that you've seen with your kids, and have that story star your family members. Many of us really love to snuggle up with our kids and read them bedtime stories. MovieStream is providing a new app that lets you create a bedtime story based on movies that you've recently seen and starring people in your profile. Angelique's family loved Lion King and Frozen 2 and is going to create a story featuring Dad and Charlie. And here's our personalized story: The Adventures of Charlie and Dad. What a perfect way to end the day.
Kind of amazing. You know, I feel like you literally write a query to apply the power of AI to your data. It's so simple and so powerful. It's honestly, it kind of blows my mind. So the other key thing too is, you know, we're using that to apply AI to your data, but then also for natural language queries, right? So one of the things that Select AI provides is the ability for you to build natural language queries very easily into any application. And we've done that by extending the SQL language, right? So there's a new capability in the SQL language where you literally say, Select AI, ask your question, which means that any tool that can speak SQL can now be a natural language query tool. And the beauty of it is you don't need to understand where your data is stored, how to write those queries. You just ask your questions using natural language. So we'll take a look at this in two ways. One, we'll look at like what's going on under the covers. And then we'll also look at this within an application.
Autonomous Database makes it easy to query your data using natural language with a capability called Select AI. Select AI has been designed so that any SQL-based application can take advantage of natural language with minimal changes. Start by creating an AI profile in Autonomous Database. An AI profile captures the large language model that will be used for translating your language into SQL. In this case, Azure OpenAI GPT-4. The AI profile also includes the tables and views that can be sources for natural language queries, including our new Watch Party JSON documents, customers, movies, streams, and more. SQL in Autonomous Database now supports natural language. You no longer need to know where your data is stored or how to formulate a query. Simply use a special AI keyword followed by your question. How many movies do we have? And we get our result. Or what are the 10 most popular watch party movies? Just follow your train of thought and ask a variety of questions. The explain SQL's action keyword is a great way to understand the underlying query execution. It not only returns the SQL for the question that was asked, but also explains the generated query. It's a great way to audit your results. Autonomous Database includes a low-code development environment called Apex. This chat app was built with Apex and Select AI in no time. It's the perfect app to give to people who need answers now. Ask your questions from a phone or your browser, wherever you may be. Download results to Excel to easily share with others. View data using charts and more. Importantly, use your language. Italian, Chinese, Spanish, any of the languages that are supported by GPT-4.
All right. So the last leg here, the last demo that we're going to show is basically integrating new data sets, right? And there's a couple of ways to do it. We talked about how Autonomous has built into it something called Data Studio with all these rich APIs that enable you to import data from other databases, perform other applications, perform transforms on all that. It's all built into Autonomous Database and there for you. Alternatively, you can use capabilities like Azure Data Factory. So if you have Azure pipelines today or data pipelines today, and you want to extend those or continue to use that as your platform for doing your data integration, awesome, right? You can do that as well. So for our last demo, let's just take a quick look at how you can use Azure data pipelines to integrate data with the database.
I need more information about my customers, and we have demographic data in the data lake. So let's integrate that data. The first thing we're going to do is, we have a definition of that table within our DevOps environment in our repo. So there's the demographics data definition, and within Autonomous, I'm just going to install it. I'm just going to take that from the repo and create that table. Now, I don't have the data values themselves. I just have the structure. For the data, I'm going to create a pipeline in Data Factory. So I've already created the pipeline. We'll just take a look at what was done. This pipeline is pretty straightforward. It's going to do a copy from that bucket from the demographic data in the Azure Data Lake. And here we can see it's coming from Bronze, the demographics folder, and all of the files within that folder. That's the source. And here you can see it. There's multiple files, obviously. The second thing is the sink. Where are we going to drop that data? That data is going to land in Autonomous Database. So here you can see the data set where we've made our connection to Autonomous. You can get the connection detail information from the autonomous database in the portal. We have all the connection strings associated with that. So that's where you can get that information to help populate the fields that are required. So that's it. I have my source. I have my sink. This is the target table. It's going to the movie stream demographics table that we just defined. We can take a look at our mappings, and you can see it's fairly clean. And let's go in and run our job. So we'll go execute this pipeline. This will take about a minute or so. And Azure Data Factory is doing its thing, right? Great, it succeeded. Let's go back into VS Code, and we'll select from our demographics table. And there we have all the information we need about our customers that are coming. It's coming from the data lake. Really simple.
All right, Marty, that's a lot of content, and I know we showed lots of different integrations, but the idea was to really try to walk through a day in the life of these folks, or these types of users who would benefit from the integrations that we've done. And we've thrown a lot at you today. Obviously, we've got details around how to do this. There's lots of information that we're making available on a daily basis to ensure you can replicate all of this. But as you could see from these demos, it was pretty straightforward. But again, back to wrap up, right? We showed operations and IT folks really benefiting from the integration of security, not having to worry about everything that's integrated in the portal through automation, either through the portal or through automation using the Azure CLI and Azure Resource Manager and so on and so forth. So the idea is benefit from all of the automation, but ensure that all the best practices that Oracle brings from a security perspective and a federation into Entra ID, and all of those are automatically made available to you. From a developer perspective, you saw how you can leverage that security while also taking advantage of some of the underlying capabilities around generative AI and graph analytics, and the whole story that Marty discussed with bedtime stories and sort of that mock application that was together. And again, working within Visual Studio Code, .NET, language of choice, framework of choice. And lastly, from a business perspective, asking natural language questions, but more importantly, asking those questions using things like OpenAI and the capabilities that are already in Azure, tying those together to give you really the best of both worlds. So with that, I hope that you got a good sense of how much work and effort, and really for our customers that we've put in to ensure that this is a seamless experience where you truly can benefit, and where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So with that, here's some get started information. As I mentioned earlier, feel free to peruse this and obviously reach out to us directly if we can help in any way. With that, Marcos, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Marty, and thank you very much, Dom. This was a great session. We had great questions as well. Questions about the different questions about even identity that you guys talked about and demonstrated and showed. Questions about VS Code extensions and things like that. So we answered most questions, guys. So Q&A is open. If you have additional questions, please make sure to type them in the Q&A for us, okay? And in the meantime, I'm running the poll just to check, how you guys feel after today's session. Hopefully you learn a lot, right? Especially the folks that did not know about the solution, the database at Azure. And I'll again leave the right now the Q&A open. So any questions you guys might have, please go ahead and type it in. In the meantime, I'll share with you guys links in the chat. So the links are in chat. That includes the link that Dominic was just showing about how to get started with Autonomous Database. That is our main page, and we have everything there, right? So, make sure to watch the other sessions, right? The part 1 that we just did last week, so you can watch the recording and try to understand the basics on how this process works. And also make sure to ask your questions, right? If you have questions, you see number 3 there. We have 2 ways for you to ask your questions directly to us. Okay. Great. Excellent. Again, thank you very much for the answers. So upcoming sessions, not next week, but the week after, we're going to actually have the part 3 of our Oracle Database at Azure sessions, which is a new way to manage Oracle databases on Microsoft Azure. So we're going to have Robert Green presenting that. Okay. And for the recording of the previous sessions, someone just asked that. Please type in the link that you see here in this page, and also is the same link that I shared in chat. So it's that bit.ly/adb-learning-lounge. You're going to be able to see that our recordings from previous session and from this session as well. Okay, that's going to be there. All right. So having said that, again, that link takes you here, and you're going to see the links. Several links are there available, but also the next sessions and the replay. So you're going to be able to see all of them there. All right. Great. So again, thank you very much for joining today's webinar. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Dom.
Thanks,
I really
everyone.
appreciate it, guys. It was great. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just leave us still here. Okay. So I'm going to keep looking at if you guys still have questions. Okay. And in the meantime, I'm going to just play some music just so the guys can wait. But we're going to be able to see that. Okay. And I see, for example, someone raising their hand. Daniel, if you have a question, make sure to type it in the Q&A, please, if possible. Okay. All right. So we'll be here waiting for your questions. Again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Dom, and thank you, Marty, for the excellent presentation. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.